Hello, welcome to Bourbon and a Baby. My name is Jay. We have another episode of Talking Bourbon and Babies today. And I'm really excited about this one because my guests today have a podcast. It's a dad podcast. It's one of my new favorite podcasts. They're four dads. So I'm going to bring them all in, let them introduce themselves. So here are the dads. Hey, fellas.
Howdy.
Hi, Jay.
How we doing?
How's it going, Jay?
Excellent. So yeah, go ahead. Go through the line. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. So Dan here, the one that's out in North Dakota. Have a 5-year-old daughter named Nora and a stepdaughter who's 13 on Sunday, named Kimberly. So I've met her mom when she was 7 or 8 and been with her ever since. Living out in North Dakota, kind of away from the rest of humanity, and raising 2 girls out here away from family, and just kind of starting my own. So that's me.
So my name is Chris. I am currently living in Lincoln, Nebraska, away from the rest of humanity, raising 2 girls on my own. I have a 3-year-old daughter named Reagan and a 10-month and 1-day-old daughter named Mackenzie.
Wow. My name is Shane. I'm in Allen Park, Michigan. I'm by a decent amount of humanity if I had to gauge it. I am the father of identical twin boys named Dominic and Isaac. Just turned 4 back in February. They're sleeping right now, probably not by the end of this show today. And married to my high school sweetheart named Jerry Ann. So we're holding it down in Downriver, Michigan.
Hi, my name is John, or Bobo, as everybody likes to call me. Nickname for my last name, which is Bobrowski. So just kind of stuck around for quite some time. I think, freshman year in high school, Chris? I think you were on that football team, JV.
It's a pretty old nickname.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm here in Brownstown, Michigan, which is not too far from Allen Park. So south of Detroit a little bit there. I have 2 girls that are above me in the pictures here, but my oldest, Eliana, she will be 4 in July, and my youngest, Madalena, just turned 2 in December. And then we actually do have a third on the way. We're about, we just set our induction date. Will be 1 month and 1 day from today, May 2nd. And we'll be expecting our first boy. Or I'm sorry, that'll be May 3rd. Expecting our first boy, though.
Awesome. Yeah. I mentioned you guys are one of my favorite, new favorite podcasts.
Stop.
Yeah. You had a series of, was it 6 or 7 in a row that you called like your Journey to Fatherhood series that I think all like soon expectant dads should listen to, because you guys go through the whole process from everything from trying to get pregnant to the pregnancy stage to the birth stage and all that. So we were talking a little bit beforehand, and I said I wish you guys would have came out with that about a year sooner, so that I could have had that as guidance as I was going through it. But it was really fun for me to listen back, just because it is still a lot of that stuff's still really fresh for me, just being a little bit over a year going through it. So I've really just kind of enjoyed listening to you guys' perspectives, and you guys are doing great stuff with the pod.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah. What do you want to kind of explain the podcast? Kind of like what it's all about, what made you start it? How you guys even know each other?
Yeah. So there's not really a great story on how we all met. We all went to the same high school together. So we kind of just met each other through being around each other. So, sports and stuff like that. Yeah. So, I mean, being on the same football team and whatnot, but the thing I can tell you is kind of like as we got older and even out of high school and stuff, we always stayed in contact, even as certain people moved to other parts of the country. And I don't know, we've always just enjoyed having conversations. Our group thread has always been a relatively entertaining one. And we've always kind of joked around and tossed out the idea of having a podcast. And we figured it would always be about something like sports or something like that. But we never really had time to do it because we all started having kids. And then we started having actual conversations about it, and it turned into the sort of thing to where well, we're never going to be able to put in the amount of time to have a sports sort of podcast because, we've got these kids around. But then we started talking about that part and kind of just how you mentioned how you wish you would have had some resources when you were going through it. We kind of recall the fact that we didn't. And if there's one thing we're kind of experts in, it's our own household and what it's like to be raising our kids in our own situations. So the fact that we didn't have those resources, and it sounded like you didn't either, we thought that might be something that's valuable. And considering that we've got 4 of us for very different situations, we figure we're able to kind of cover a lot of avenues, look at it from every possible angle, try to bring a little bit of levity to it as well. And what started off as kind of a theoretical, hey, we might as well do this, turned into something that we've gotten some pretty good feedback on and we've really enjoyed doing. And to be honest with you, I feel like we've kind of become better dads in the process. So kind of a happy accident.
And we don't all agree either.
No, we don't.
Right. And that's what's great from a listener's perspective is hearing your guys's, things that you do differently, disagree on and stuff. It makes me as a dad, think, well, how would I react in that situation? Would I agree with Dan's perspective or would I agree with Bobo's perspective?
Probably not.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I think your podcast really shines for dads. Because you're 4 dads. I didn't even mean to say
I like it. You can't help but make the joke.
Right. That's there.
But yeah, that was one of the reasons that I wanted to start my YouTube channel, was because I didn't see a lot of other dad content out there. There's a few here and there, but on YouTube especially, it's a lot of mom stuff.
Yep.
And I imagine I haven't looked up too many parenting podcasts, but I imagine podcasts are the same, mostly mom related.
It's got to be 10 to 1. It's got to be.
One of the things, there's a lot of people talking about this woman named Rachel Hollis, who has a couple of really popular books, and she also has like an Instagram presence and a podcast presence. And everyone's like, oh, we need there's no Rachel Hollis equivalent for dads where people say, hey, like, we're all going through these experiences. We're not trying to compete with her, but it's just like, hey, we want to give something for dads that's valuable too.
Yeah. Have you found, since you've started, or maybe even beforehand, have you found any other dad-related content, either on podcasts or social media or YouTube, that you've been following along with?
Yeah, there's this one called Bourbon and a Baby that is very, very cool.
I'm a fan of it.
I would subscribe to it.
Pretty good.
Definitely smash that like button.
Oh,
Yeah. Instagram. I started. I'm not a big Instagram guy, social media guy as far as that, but I've kind of taken the reins on running our Facebook and our Instagram, and kind of just to get out there. I was doing a lot of the meme pages, and there's a lot of my wife, maybe a year ago or so, she tried to get in a little bit of the into that game of kind of posting her own kind of mom side of things and some funny things that our daughter said or did and different things like that. And so I kind of got involved in that. And there's a lot of moms, stay-at-home moms, working moms, mess moms and all that kind of stuff. Well, there are some dads out there. And so I followed a lot of them. I interacted with them. The Dad is kind of the big one right now. I'm sure, you've seen them. I mean, tons of content. They're putting a lot of stuff out there. And it's great. It's really, it's good stuff. It's not preachy. It tries to be funny, but also tries to, like we try to do, bring levity, bring some heart to things. They share a lot of videos about good stuff that dads are doing around there, because a lot of times when we've joked about this before is dads are always kind of like the buffoons when it comes to in media. You got your Phil Dunphys and the things like that, where that's who we're fighting against. Oh, dad made dinner. Oh my God. And it's just like this weird thing. We're like, yeah, we should be able to do those things. I mean, my wife works 40 hours a week. She puts in just as much work as I do outside the house. So why can't we do a little bit more at home too?
Yeah. Anybody else have any other ones that you follow or consume?
On Twitter, it seems like most of it winds up being the dad joke type of things, and it gets funny, but it doesn't really help you as a dad, except those one-liners you can interject on occasion. But there is during that search, I did find one thing that's like a dad summit. They travel, one city every year, and I think the next one's in LA. The most recent one was in DC, and that seemed really cool. It's like the Dad 2.0 Summit or whatever, and seemed like hundreds and hundreds of dads were going to this thing and learning not only about parenting but also about like promoting your own brand and working from home. And so that's one that I follow. Haven't been like super close or connected with it, but might be something to look into next year. I'm not sure exactly the dates are when the dates are, but
I think there's a lot of it's just hard to find that following because it seems, and we've talked about this. One of the reasons why we did this is it's hard for, I think, guys to kind of have that, emotional, opening to other people about, hey, I'm struggling through this. Hey, I'm worried about different things about being a father. And so I think that's kind of one of those things, like people are almost afraid to like and comment on stuff because they're worried about what other people might think when they see it. When a mom does it, oh, it's funny. All us moms can get together and bash the dads and kind of join in that group where, we can't say the negative things that get said about us. It's not going to end up well.
It's what's cool about your project too, because we can see that like Max means a lot to you in terms of like, okay, well, you picked out a bottle drink with him when he turns 21, and you talk about even in your most recent one, here's all the things we thought about that goes into naming them and those things. So you can tell that your son means a lot to you, and our kids mean a lot to us, and that's not something that you can get from just like a page that shares memes. So it's really nice to be here to talk about this stuff with you as someone who also like is comfortable showing that they care about their kids and not make it just a big joke.
Yeah, I'm hoping like that this becomes more like acceptable or more of a thing because I'd like to see more and more dad podcasts, dad YouTube channels, and things like that grow. And maybe it's just the generation of people coming up now are different than the previous generation, so maybe that has something to do with it.
And we're all probably generally the same age. And I was kind of blown away. And I think all of us were, how many people were like, hey, man, thanks for talking about that. Because I went through that and never had a chance to talk about that with anyone before. And hearing you guys talk about it was really helpful. So we don't have thousands and thousands of fans yet, but we have people where it resonates with. And that's what matters.
Right. What do you guys think? Do you want to, as we continue talking about some of this stuff, do you want to drink some bourbon while we're here?
Yes.
I've purposely not reached. I've not reached for my glass, waiting for you're okay. So
all right.
Yes, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Well, I think most of us have already poured some here. I think we all, except for Dan, have some Evan Williams bottled in bond.
It's so good that mine not ran out. So I had to improv.
Hey, for an improv, Buffalo Trace is a good one to fill in. Bobo, I heard you had to pay like $26 for yours.
Yeah, I had to go to 4 different stores.
Wow.
Yeah, you can't put a price on the time and the gas either, can you?
And the exposure too. So we were testing it. No, it was good though. But it was funny. We found it. I went to 2 different like actual liquor stores, and they're like, no, I never heard of the white label. I'm like, oh, okay. And walked to the next one, nothing. And we went into this last one. We were going to go into Kroger or Meijer or something like that. And I was like, let's just go to this other one around the corner. And my wife wanted to call ahead because she's like, I don't want it. You keep getting out of the car. And the girls were trying to get the girls down for a nap. And I went in, and sure enough, it was an old guy. I mean, he had to have been 80 years old. Asked what I was looking for. And this was like, they had bottles that had, a centimeter of dust on them, and he found it, and it was great. I said, $26. I was like, yeah, it's like $15, $20, I think. He was, well, I got this one. I was like, all right, I guess I got to take it. So.
Yeah. Which it's so crazy for me to hear because one of the reasons that I suggested this for us all is that generally it's widely available. Generally, it's like around $15.
That pandemic markup.
Yeah, people must be.
I said the same thing before you jumped on here.
That's awesome. It's good though.
All right, I'm gonna smell it. So one of the things to bourbon, I guess I haven't asked you guys yet. How experienced are you as bourbon drinkers? Do you guys normally drink bourbon? You normally drink something else?
So I'm usually Scotch and then whiskey and then occasionally bourbon, very rarely bourbon on my own. So if I'm hanging out with some buddies, I've got a couple friends who are really into it. So I kind of follow their lead on that. If I'm going to be drinking something on my own, it's typically Scotch or whiskey.
Okay.
Yeah, usually whiskey. Used to dabble in Beam quite frequently, but that's about as far as my bourbon knowledge goes.
Yeah, I probably started with whiskey. It was, when I was younger, it was all Jack Daniels and everything, of course, a lot of mixes and stuff like that. And then just recently, I've tried to drink a little bit more bourbon. Now, I don't know much about it. My father-in-law, has had a couple different types that we'd have at the lake in the summer. We try that out, and I just look at it's a lot better than just drinking 10 beers or something, 12 beers when I don't need to, with all those extra calories. But yeah, so I'm here to learn. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Awesome.
I'm also here to learn. I'm a craft beer snob, but party Chris likes margaritas.
You can't beat a good margarita.
No, let's just say my experience is basically a 0 today. So I'm here to learn.
All right. Well, what we call like the nosing process. If open your mouth up a little bit, and if you just kind of smell. And have that mouth open, kind of breathe in as you're smelling, and kind of walk me through. What do you guys? Anything smell familiar other than alcohol?
A little brown sugar for me.
Yeah, is like caramel. I don't.
Yeah.
Yep. I get some vanilla too.
Yeah, it smells a little bit sweeter than I would have guessed. Like not obnoxious or anything like that, but I definitely a little bit of brown sugar and a hint of vanilla.
Yeah, I tell. Yeah.
None of that, like, how you always, especially those who aren't well versed, it was like oaky and just other types of wood. None of that actually. I don't smell any of that.
Yeah, I don't get too much. And this is probably only about 4 years old, so
yeah,
probably why you don't get too much of that oakiness here.
So, what age of a bourbon would have more of an oaky, lived-in smell?
Dan might get some from his Buffalo Trace. His is probably around 6 to 7 years there.
Oh, thank God. I thought I was crazy.
I smell nothing but wood with this.
But yeah, generally once you start hitting that 6 to 7 year range, you'll start to pick that up more. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get a taste. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Nostrovia. It's good.
It's good.
That is good.
Yeah.
So this is 100 proof. It's a bottled and bond. So what it has to be by law bottled at 100 proof or 50% alcohol, and by law it has to be at least 4 years old. So that's kind of what it means by saying bottled and bond there. But yeah, what do you guys taste?
I definitely taste the brown sugar I was smelling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's got a I don't know.
Take another sip.
So I'm not very learned, of course, but it's very strong on the front of my tongue and then moves to the back.
Okay. Yeah. And that's when it starts moving like that, that's what we call the finish. So kind of like that aftertaste, kind of what you pick up once you've you've gone through the process, and as it's kind of warming up, as it goes down.
So it's smoother than I was expecting. Brown sugar is definitely I don't want to say overpowering taste, but the main thing that I taste, I don't taste like a lot of alcohol with it, which I wasn't expecting with it being 100 proof. So no, I actually like it much better than I thought it would.
So I comically taste a lot of alcohol, but once again, maybe I'm not so refined.
It's a process. It's all about going through the process, experiencing it. Because when I first started drinking bourbon, I almost had to force myself because I didn't like it at first. So just kind of the more I would go back to it, the less of that kind of all alcohol flavor I would taste, and I'd be able to pick up on the different layers of it.
So Jay, how did you learn? Through immersion or studying or a combination of both?
Mostly immersion. I like it. Well, the cool thing about getting into what I call a hobby of bourbon is that as you start drinking it more and collecting it more, it kind of takes on, like if you've ever collected anything like comic books or something like that, where you just like feel like you have to buy something. Like every time you go to the store, you have to come up with a bottle, which can get expensive and get you in trouble. But I haven't gone too crazy with it, and I don't call myself a collector, even though I brought that whole thing up. I consider myself. I don't have bottles that I just don't open. I drink everything I buy, but I do kind of let it stack up to where I've got. I think I have around 40 bottles at home right now. But yeah, just every time I'd go to the store, I'd be like, oh, I've heard about this one. I want to buy this one, and then I would try it. And I would taste it next to a different one and see what was different about the two. And so that's kind of how I like started really getting into it.
You learn by doing. I like it.
Yeah.
Do you have like a like your top 3 that you haven't tried yet, or is there like a bucket list bourbon that you're waiting to try out?
There's a few. Mostly the like those bucket list ones are either way out of my price range or just next to impossible to find. So I try not to focus too much on those because, you know, there's so many that are available that I can't afford that I can go back and forth between. So if something comes up and I'm able to try one of those bucket list ones, awesome. If not, I'm not gonna worry too much about it.
So I've got a question for you. So for a novice, because I had to do this when I first started drinking scotch, and there's no more humbling experience than Googling how to drink scotch, like how to do something that simple. So how do you choose to do it? Because, you know, you look up the techniques on whether or not to do it on the rocks, how to open it up and stuff like that. And I found what I like. What is it that you like, and what sort of process did you go through in terms of how you like to drink your bourbon?
That's a really good question. I really thought that the bourbon world was filled with like snobs. I pictured like these snobby old men that, you know, if you dropped an ice cube in your glass, they would try to kick you out of the bar. Yeah. So, but really, especially I watched a lot of different YouTube channels when I was first getting into it. There's one called It's Bourbon Night that I really latched onto at the beginning. And they're just like really welcoming. They want most people in the community want people to come in and join the community. So it's, if you want it with ice, drink it with ice. If you want it with Coke, drink it with Coke. However you want to drink it, however you like it, that's kind of, you know, there's no like looking down on somebody for drinking it how they like it. When I first started, I would mix it with ginger ale a lot. And then I would just kind of put less and less ginger ale in each time until where I was drinking it, where it was just bourbon. And then I would drink it on the rocks. And still my preferred method usually is with ice if I'm just out and about drinking. But if I'm tasting, you know, doing a review or a video, then I'll drink it neat, like we're drinking here.
So I would say that, you know, and for Chris, someone who, like you said, doesn't, you know, sticks to the beer and things like that. Talking about kind of forcing yourself through it. I did very similar to what Jay's saying. When I first kind of took away any of a mixer, I would go ice and water, and then eventually kind of went away from the water completely and then just on the rocks. And then once in a while I'll, you know, sip something like this, but most of the time it's, you know, just on the rocks and, you know, a couple, whatever, I don't know what you say, 2 fingers, 3 fingers. I just fill the glass up to the top and then go sit down in the chair. I mean, you know, it's no big deal. But yeah, I mean, that was one of the things I was wondering. I like to hear that from you because yeah, it's one of those, I don't want to embarrass myself when I actually go out somewhere and order a nice, you know, a nice glass of bourbon and then put it on the rocks. And then everybody's like, oh, what's this guy doing? You know, that's good to know though. Yeah.
Anybody that does that, unless they're like a good friend and, you know, are busting your chops, those people are jerks.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So yeah, just drink it however you want it. If you ask my opinion, I'll tell you how I like to drink it.
Yeah,
I'm not going to force that upon you or anybody else.
Right.
So I have a question. So for my interests, I'm on message boards for things pretty frequently. Are there how do you maintain your network? Are you on bourbon net message boards? Do you have is there some?
Sure. Our bourbon on Reddit's a pretty big thing for bourbon drinkers. I don't post on there. because they don't, I don't try to at least advertise myself on there because I don't think it's part of I think it's against the rules, but the what they kind of call the WhiskeyTube community on YouTube. There's a ton of different whiskey and bourbon channels out there, and everybody's just so friendly, kind of willing to help each other out, kind of work together with each other. So I do a lot with other channels, and I also do there's other bourbon stuff on social media that I follow and kind of can work with here and there. Also, my last guest prior to you guys, her name was Susie. She works for the ABV network, which is it's a podcast network for bourbon related stuff.
Nice.
So like
nice.
they have stuff like that. So it's amazing once you really start to look into it how like deep and really close knit and helpful the community is.
Very cool.
We need to start a dad podcast network.
There you go. You should.
Just side note.
We got to start finding them out there. Yeah, just get on Spotify.
Actually, edit that out. I don't want anybody to take it. That's 5 to start it. But post editing, we'll get to it.
As we're sitting here drinking, like before Max was born, I thought about bringing him home and like having my first celebratory like drink or pour, once he was home. But when I actually got him home, I was like, I don't want to drink, this little baby. What if I have to if he's crying after he falls asleep, I have to pick him up, and then I'm, I don't. So I felt real weird about drinking, at least, especially that first 4 to 8 weeks or so, in particular. How do you guys feel about? I know your kids are all a little bit older than Max, but
there's a lot more drinking now.
Yeah. Do you guys have you had any reservations, or do you try to because one thing, if I know I'm going to go out for a night of drinking, we'll either have a sitter. If my wife and I are both going, we'll either have a sitter, or if just one of us will drink and the other one will stay sober. What do you guys do for stuff like that?
So I'll go ahead and jump in here just because I think my answer is going to be a little bit shorter. First of all, the whole feeling out period when it comes to getting used to having little creatures that you're responsible for, you don't really want to be impaired when you're still kind of going through the feeling out process. So I think that first couple months stretch of not really doing it much at all is pretty reasonable. Frankly, there's not really much time to anymore. At least I haven't really noticed it. At least not while they're awake. You know what I mean? So it's really one of those things to where, if they go down to bed or something like that, cool. But the whole going out thing, that's been gone. That's a distant memory. But no, the main thing is my style of drinking has changed. I drink so much less beer. So if I dabbled in a little bit of everything before, I drink beer maybe once a month at this point. And if I am going to have something, it's going to be a glass of wine. It's going to be something like this to where I'm able to feel comfortable after much shorter duration of time. I'm not feeling bloated. You know what I mean? It's I don't have time. So I feel like this is a more timely drink, if that makes sense. But very rarely, it's not really done when I would have to also be dadding. I don't really think those are two things that mix. So
right.
Yeah. But so when Nora was that young, you're talking about the first couple of weeks, I didn't have her, so I was going over to her mom's house to visit, so I couldn't really do it then. I feel like that's a quick way to not see your kid. Showing up hammered, hey, visitation. So then when I started to get her, at my place and overnights and everything, she was still less than a year, and I was living by myself, so I didn't really drink at all in my own apartment. If I drank, I was going out on nights I didn't have her. So the first time where this really became a thing I even thought about was probably a year and a half, maybe 2. And at that point it was I'll have a little bit while she's awake or after she goes to bed. But obviously hard limits on yourself. But even then it was I don't want to, as kids are learning so much, I don't want her to report back to her mom on me.
Right.
So
right.
It really rule of thumb, I haven't really while she's been awake. For the most part. Now, granted, I will say, proud dad moment. Like earlier this week, she went and got me my first beer. So, yeah, like
Yes,
Nora, go grab that white bottle over there.
There you go.
Bring it. So, yeah, for the most part, after she's asleep, unless
Okay.
So for me, I've always been kind of a moderation nerd. I'm not the type to usually drink too much at home, and I don't get a ton of nights out. So I always felt like it was okay to have one beer or two beers and not feel like it was affecting me as a parent, even from a young age. With even if I was by myself, so just know what my limitations were and be reasonable about it and not be too paranoid. But I don't think, Jay, your concern is a uncommon one. I think a lot of people are like, I'm not going to touch anything until my kid's 18, that type of mentality, until they realize, no, I'm probably okay.
I will say, just to hop back in to give the other side of the picture, like there were definitely times when I had Nora and she was, between 2 and 3, and we'd have a barbecue, and I'd tell Lynn, my significant other, like, all right, I'm gonna drink. She's not much of a drinker, so she wouldn't. And so, in case of an emergency, we have one person that could drive. But even then, right, barbecue ends, people hang back, start playing music inside the house, not loud, right? It's not like a party where you're in college, but you still have that moment where it's like, oh shit, everybody shut up. Like, we can't do this. And if it hasn't happened to you yet, I think it will. And it's just a funny moment where you got to like tell your friends, like, no, fuck up.
See, now going back to like the when you first become the dad, and that's something we didn't talk about even during our Journey to Fatherhood series, was kind of that time where you were able to sit down and actually, like, when you get drunk for the first time after becoming a dad, like that's almost an event in itself. Now, for my own sake, I can't say I know when that was, but I remember having my first beer with my dad after we brought home Eliana from the hospital, whatever day that was, the first or second day. A couple beers, maybe we ordered pizza, something simple like that. But it never got to, I can't remember when when the first, like, by myself with her, and then I was just kind of like doing it. Like, it seemed like more of a social thing. Whereas now, once they're a little bit older, they actually sleep through the night. You kind of get into a little bit more of a groove and things like that. So, early on, I think it's just up to you and your partner, right? That's the other thing too. Right. If your partner's getting up throughout the night and you're laying in bed, I think the other question is the hangover. That's the question, because you don't want that hangover the next morning when the kid gets up at 6 a.m. That's the trick, is your spouse or whatever partner better be okay with you sleeping in till 7 or 8 when she's getting up at 6, because that'll start a whole nother issue.
So hold on. The pushback I'll give to that is that one thing I will tell you about, since I've had kids, I drink way smarter. So I down water the entire time in a way that I never did in my 20s. I understand my own mortality because I feel ancient just when I'm not doing anything. But I avoid hangovers like the plague. So I hydrate like crazy. Part of that is having a doctor wife, but the other part is not wanting to have to explain things the next day. So
smart.
Yeah. And that
water breaks.
Yeah, that is a big part of it, because the very first time my wife and I both left, and it was actually like a day and a half. It was supposed to be a weekend thing, but we just went for the one day. But we were like, all right, we're free and clear. We can drink as much as we want, and we both were just like, we drank a little bit, and we're just like, man, this just doesn't feel right.
Yep.
How old was Max when you left?
About right around 3.5 months, somewhere in there. So still pretty early.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Yeah, you're like, oh man.
Yeah. Now the second time was maybe when he was about 6 months. And it was one of my really good friends. He had this huge birthday party bash, and we stayed the night there. And that time we both felt a lot more comfortable, and we both were able to let loose that time.
Yeah,
good.
It's healthy, and it's definitely necessary.
But you got to be careful, because then you end up with the second one if you're not careful. So just putting that out there.
Sometimes you end up with the second one just because.
Wow, that's true. That's true.
where our goal is the one. So that's
Okay.
We haven't made it that official yet. So we have to be a little bit careful with things like that moving forward.
That's cool.
But yeah, kind of one of the things that we were talking about earlier was just how kind of your podcast really works. I think, at least for me as a listener, because of all your different perspectives. So John, Bobo, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, you have 2 girls now, but you're about to have a boy. So what do you think that dynamic's gonna be different, kind of raising a boy as opposed to raising a girl?
Definitely. It's one of those things that you're a little like, I'm nervous. I'm more nervous now than I was before my second daughter was born, because I feel like I knew what to expect. I was prepared for everything that was going to happen. I knew what the progression was going to be. But now with a boy, and I have 3 nieces, so I don't have any little boys. I've never changed a little boy's diaper. I've never dealt with any of that stuff. So it's like taking me back to being a dad for the first time. It's the anxieties of the unknown, the little things that you worry about. Shane's talked about different things. You hear from people with the way the kids, boys tend to be a little more crazy, right? So are they going to be more rambunctious? Are they going to be a little more where my girls are sweet and they play dolls and they?
No, spoiler alert. They're going to be more rambunctious,
right? Like, and my wife, she's more of a girly girl, so the girl thing has kind of worked out. I'm able to kind of sit back and enjoy, and I'm the prince, and I get to, I'm fawned over all day. Well, now once you have this boy coming in, it's going to be a little bit more like maybe WWF, and I got to get ready to, yep. And I'm, I don't know. It's different. The toys. And if you learn anything about me, I'm always worried about money. I'm always worried about stuff and clutter. Well, we have 2 girls worth of stuff, and now we got to add in a boy's worth of stuff. And knowing our families, it's just going to be more than any kid should get. And I just think about that too. The anxiety kicks in, like, okay, where am I going to put all this crap? Because now we can't just have Barbie houses and frozen Elsa vanities everywhere, which is what I'm looking at right now. We're going to have, I guess, guy themed stuff. So, I mean, that's just something I'm worried about. I mean, it'll be interesting. It'll be different.
So just quick time out. You want to know what Dominic's favorite toy is right now? It's a shoebox, John. Relax. You're going to be okay. It's a shoebox.
I got, trust me, with my wife, I got plenty of shoeboxes.
I'm saying you're fine.
You've
already got it. So
Max is the same. Simple toys, or not even toys. He'll sit there and just play with anything. So
yeah, my 10-month-old is currently playing with the Amazon remote. Like, that's her favorite, the little tiny thing.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even need to be a toy. It just needs to be something in front of her that she can eat. A thing. Yep, for sure.
Well, then they're tall enough now. Like my girls, their thing now is going into the drawers. We actually, for the first time, had to put childproof locks on all our drawers with our spoons and knives and things like that, because they'll go in and they want to play. And they don't want to go play with their play spoons. They want to go play with our actual flatware. And so that just became, so we finally put locks on it. But again, you're right. You spend all this money on toy play, plates and stuff, and they want to play with the real stuff. I mean, I think it is like, we overthink it as parents too much now.
Practice how you play. Just getting prepared.
Yep.
Yeah, we had a real similar situation with Max, because all of my immediate family, like, I have an older brother and a sister, all girls. So I have 3 nieces on that side. My wife has an older brother, and he has 4 girls. So, so yeah, we were twins. 2 of them are twins. So we had we were kind of the first in our immediate family to have
break the streak.
Yeah. So
you probably weren't expecting that, were you?
No. Well, it was weird, because when she first got pregnant, I think we both were like, it's going to be a girl. Mm-hmm. And then when we got maybe about 3 or 4 months in, I think both of us kind of around the same point were like, it's a boy. We could, something switched. I don't know what it was, but it felt like it was
funny.
And sure enough, it was too. So you broke that chain.
Yep. Yeah. And I know, like, my mom in particular was really excited to have like a little boy in the family finally. So it's kind of cool in that perspective.
So we went from getting pressure to giving grandkids to now we're giving pressure to get a grandson. So there's just no pleasing people.
Chris, I got a bag of ice with your name on it, man. We get this.
I'm good. Well, 2 is enough.
My wife and I waited long enough, so I think everybody's just happy that we actually did have a kid. So I don't think we're gonna have too much pressure for more on our.
That's good.
Yeah. Shane, you have twins.
I do. Yes.
What, like, I imagine like when most people kind of bring that up to you and maybe like ask you questions about raising twins, generally like the consensus would be like it's got to be such a challenging thing, and I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
But like, let's look at the other side of that. What are some of the positives of having twins?
And so one thing I'll kind of admit to is I feel kind of guilty is that there's a lot of times when the twin thing gets brought up and I feel like I just focus on the part that's hard. Yeah. But there are 2 parts that are significant benefits to having twins. First of all, I'm a way better dad because of it. Main reason why is because there were no days off at the beginning. So there might be some dads out there to where they weren't really changing diapers very much early on. They weren't getting up in the middle of the night. They weren't really involved in the feeding process because it was just breastfeeding. Because there was 2 of them, there wasn't an area for me to not be involved. So even taking away any complications that we may have had on our end, just there being 2 of them, I had to be involved the entire time. So every single night I was getting up, I was going through the changing diapers, putting clothes on them, and I kind of evolved at a much quicker pace than I otherwise would have. And I didn't miss out on anything, which kind of leads to the second benefit. So you'll run into some dads who have issues with the bonding with their kids.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't even realize it's an issue at the time, right? They just kind of think, this is my role as a dad, and the mom's the mom. That's the more emotional part. I missed nothing when it comes to the bonding part. So she's obviously got some built-in parts of being a mom that I can't relate with being a dad. But when it comes to spending time, being someone who they look to for even something as simple as like nourishment, I didn't miss a thing when it comes to that. So I felt connected from day one, essentially. So being as involved as I was, I feel like it shaved years off the process for me. When it comes to getting used to it, developing that muscle memory and stuff like that. My biggest fear when it came to being a dad going in, I always assumed that a kid was made out of paper mache. So like putting a shirt on him, I thought I was going to break an arm or something like that. Turns out they're made out of like stretch Armstrong material. They're actually indestructible at that age. I got to learn all of that stuff in real time just by being involved. But because of that, just like emotionally, I feel very, very connected with my kids, and I have from the beginning. And that's something that I really can attribute to having twins, because it kind of forced me to be on my game from day one. So those would be the 2 biggest benefits, I would say. Also, it's just cool too. Like they look just like each other. Like that's unique. That's pretty neat.
One thing that I'm super jealous of, and I don't know if I don't know if you see it as a positive or not, because I'm sure it drives you crazy, but like I feel so guilty sometimes. So at Nora's mom's house, she has 2 little brothers, and there's playmates built in. And then she comes over here, and like we have Kimberly. Yes, she has somebody, but they're older. And if Kimberly's at her dad's house, then she's just like by herself. So one thing, I don't know if you see it as a positive, but I'm so jealous that you just always have that playmate over there.
Yeah, sparring partner.
Yeah, so
more appropriate name.
So therein kind of lies the rub there. I assume eventually it'll get to that point, right? Most of my time right now is spent breaking up their fights. Granted, they do have some moments now, like over the last 6 months, to where they're nice to each other, but even that's really a ruse. It's like I'm going to go up and give my brother a hug, but I'm actually secretly putting in a rear naked choke. Like it's one of those. It took a while for them to even acknowledge that they were more than roommates, that they're actually brothers, like asking for one another and stuff like that. So once they kind of crossed that threshold, it was really cool. Eventually they're going to become better playmates. I haven't seen the fruits of that yet though. It's been mainly one of the downsides.
How old did you say they are again?
They just turned 4.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because we've seen that with my brother-in-law has twin girls, and I feel bad that I don't know their exact age right now, but they're like 10 or 11.
Man, you're okay.
Yeah. that's one you mentioned, like be kind of getting immersed and being a better dad. I noticed that with him when he first had them too. It was like immediately he was just like
you have to be involved.
Yeah.
There's no exception, right?
But yeah, he has said that he really likes that they do like keep each other company as they were getting older. So hopefully that'll start kicking in more for you when they stop beating each other up so much.
It's gotten better. I'm just saying it always ends in a fight. I'm not saying that it's a fight the entire time, but man, they go hard. They go hard is the thing.
So this them episodes of Property Brothers so they could learn from good twins. I say, hey, this is what you need to aspire to, boys.
No, they're gonna watch The Parent Trap and learn all the shenanigans they can get into.
There's a much higher likelihood of that. Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Dan, you have a different perspective because you're not just a dad to Nora, but like you've mentioned, you have a stepdaughter as well. I grew up in a household where I had a step parent growing up. Well, how is that either different or similar to being a dad to Nora? How is being a step parent different?
Well, it's similar, I guess, in the fact that like in your immediate care, like you're gonna do everything to protect them. You're responsible for them at that moment, and you want to still impart pieces of yourself onto them, and teach them and guide them and whatever. So it's similar in that regards. It's different because like there's shit you didn't sign up for that's attached, so it's like you have to account for somebody else's entire background, their entire family, their belief system, and you kind of have to respect that, and it's tough sometimes. And I'm very fortunate that I grew up in the same type of a household. I'm currently a dad and a stepdad. My daughter has a stepdad at her mom's house, and so it's like I'm very fortunate because all of my situations there's a healthy relationship there, or there's co-parenting and good communication. But even still, there's disagreements, and you still have to have like hard conversations and make concessions, and like there's gonna be fights about it. Not like it's gonna tear us apart, but you're gonna have those conversations and you're gonna have disagreements. But if you are willing to work through and you have those conversations on a consistent basis, it works out well, and sometimes too well. The example of that is that Nora takes so much pride in having two moms and two dads that's the first thing she'll tell people.
That's cool.
And on occasion,
That is cool.
Yeah, sometimes, except for when she leaves out half of it, and you take her to the trampoline park, and she sees the stranger, and they go, "Oh, hi," because strangers do that sometimes. And then your daughter goes, "I have two dads." And you're like, okay, yeah, you do. All right. So yeah, it's fun, man, but it's definitely there's a lot more things to consider, and you have to kind of drop the ego sometimes. So it's a challenge, but it's fun.
Well, that's something I hadn't really thought of. You mentioned that Nora also has a stepdad. Was that kind of difficult at first to get used to the fact of like somebody else?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you can't help it. So I've had conversations with other people in the same boat, and like initially, like no matter who that new person is, it's kind of like screw them, and then kind of settled down. It's like, okay, I can't be like that. Have an open mind. This could be an asset to my daughter. He could be able to show her things that I can't. For example, her stepdad knows how to play the guitar. I don't.
Wish you could.
Yeah, right. So as she's getting lessons, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna stick around, just make sure doing all right. But no, man, it's definitely difficult, and it's a hard pill to swallow. Like we, one of the conversations we had to have was when her mom was like, hey, I want Nora to be able to call her stepdad dad, and if she wants to call Lynn mom, that's cool too. And at first it was like bad, like no way. So yeah, it's definitely difficult, but over time, like again, you kind of kill your ego and look at it as far as what's best for your kid, and as long as that's always the thing that guides you,
Right.
like yeah, another responsible adult, like in your life, absolutely. Now, if they were a piece of crap, then it's something totally different. But
Sure.
I don't have experience with that. So
And you know, realistically, obviously Kayla's husband has been in Nora's life for a long time. It's not like Nora's 15 trying to call someone dad. You know, she's been around this guy a long time. So you can understand, at least from that perspective too.
yeah, absolutely, and that's a whole other dynamic that I'm sure that would be weird. Like so my mom remarried when I was 5. Like, loved my stepdad. She got remarried again, and initially, I was 23 at the time. Like, I dress you, I don't have to like you. Obviously, that changed eventually. But
Sure.
the age, I'm sure, plays a huge difference.
Yeah. I had like an experience real similar to where had a step parent being brought in when I was older, and that is kind of a different initial reaction. Like, it's a little bit weird to get used to, but then you do. But yeah.
So this might be telling one of Dan's stories, and if you don't want me to tell it, you can yell at me later. But I remember, so Dan and I have been friends for a long time, and before Dan's mom had remarried, the other time, I felt like we were screening some of the guys too, and we were like really crappy teenagers, and these guys would come over and be like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna have her home by midnight," and just stuff like that. So your age plays a big role in that thing for sure.
Chris, one of the things I wanted to ask you about with your experience, because you're North Dakota, is that right?
I'm in Nebraska.
Oh, you're in Nebraska.
A little south.
Okay, yeah, okay. So you're in Nebraska, but I imagine your family is back mostly in the Michigan area.
My parents, they were in 2018 they retired and moved to Florida. But to that point, you're right. They've been in Michigan until I was 32. I'm 34 now, so they moved to Florida. But nevertheless, it was a big move. My wife's family raised my wife in Nebraska, so I've been familiar with going there. It was definitely it would be the right choice in the long term. It's good for the kids to grow up around grandparents and feel like they're, the aunts and uncles are part of their life.
Yeah.
For me, it's been a big adjustment. Definitely don't have as many friends around and don't have much of a social life. One of the reasons that I was really interested in starting this podcast is to connect to these other 3 guys and see them on a weekly basis. So that made me feel a lot less lonely. Being somewhere new because we started it in September or so of last year, and I moved in August, so it was definitely a way for me to touch base to my old life.
How did your kids adjust? I don't know how old they were when you moved, but how did it affect them at all, or are they still pretty young yet?
They were really young. Obviously, the little one was only about a month old, so she took a flight at maybe a couple weeks. We're a couple months actually when my wife moved in July. The oldest one was very. It's kind of funny actually. You bring this up. So she missed all of her friends, but that little kid thing happens where they forget about that, and their long-term memory isn't very good. So some of the people who were her friends previously, she doesn't have much of a memory of, and you can show them pictures, and she doesn't really recognize them. Who is this person? So we it's not like moving when you have really strong bonds and people who you're gonna regret not knowing for a lifetime. So we moved at the right time. We hope we don't have to move again. It's been a real adjustment for Rachel and I, kind of getting used to a new life and hitting reset in your early 30s. But we're trying. But we know for the kids, it's more important because it's not it's not always about you once you start having kids.
Right. Another question, and I'm pretty sure this was you, so forgive me if it wasn't, but did you really think that it was a great idea to try to walk into a Dairy Queen
Dude, we've talked about this a lot since then. Like, no.
No, he sent a Snapchat yesterday. He was driving somewhere with one shoe on.
And he did it on purpose, is the thing.
Yeah.
He left the house like, hey, I'm going to take this picture.
So we talk about COVID brain and how the coronavirus has made you question your sanity a little bit.
Jeez.
Yeah, it wasn't a good idea on paper or in execution.
So hold on. Time out. This isn't my show, but I'm going to ask a question. So you mean to tell me that 3 months ago you wouldn't have pulled that same sort of thing if the weather permitted? That you were above doing this 3 months ago?
It would have been less foolhardy. I'll say that.
Let me ask you, Chris.
Hey, this is Jay's show. This isn't about me. You guys can listen on our podcast.
Real quick though, how did Rachel feel about that story when she heard it last week?
I didn't tell her at the time, but I told her about it after we had recorded it. She just said, "What is wrong with you?" Oh man, I didn't expect you to bring that up today, Jay. That's not funny.
Yeah, I wanted to throw that as a curveball to you. So
Yeah.
Go. Anybody watching? Go listen to. Was it your pandemic parenting episode 2?
Yeah, if nothing else, the last 10 minutes. Just you're going to learn a lot about one of us real quick. I
was washing some dishes when I was listening to that, and I was just laughing out loud the whole time. So.
Yeah, somebody snorted. I don't know who.
And I think Dan squealed.
I don't know what happened. I lost my mind though. I couldn't stop laughing.
You know, I'm 34. I have a good job. I'm going to grad school. That is the dumbest thing I've done in my entire life.
Yeah, I was about to say all the more reason why it's unacceptable that you.
Chris, I could bring up some college stories that were much dumber than that.
We'll talk about that offline.
Okay.
Speaking of the COVID brain, like we're all currently kind of in quarantine situations right now. Yes. How are your kids old enough yet to kind of grasp what's going on, or is it just kind of we don't go outside very much?
I'll say real quick, because I think me, Chris, and Shane are probably in a similar boat with the age group. Before Dan probably will have maybe a little bit more, and it's different though where he's at too. Maybe I don't know, but so our girls, we are kind of at that. I mean, I don't want to downplay anything that's going on, but it's the age that it's happening for our girls. I'm happy that it's happening now and not when they are established with friends, established in school, because there are a lot of kids that are going through some very hard mental hurdles right now that they can't understand. We've just kind of told our girls there's a sickness outside, so we have to stay home for a little bit. They don't know what a week is. You know, all of us, a week to us right now is an eternity. They have no idea what that means. So I think the hardest thing for them is that they don't get to see their cousins. And then normally both sets of our parents, we are blessed that we all live close to each other, that our their grandparents will rotate and watch the girls every day while we're going to work. So they are used to having their way with their grandmas every day, getting all the snacks and every treat they want. Now, with my wife and I home for the last 2 weeks, these girls are eating apples and bananas at snack time, and they just I know, and it's hilarious because I think they're so young that it's already ingrained in their mind. They don't ask for goldfish, they don't ask for Cheez-Its or Doritos. That's what our parents would give them because they know that's what they want. But we're like, oh no, we got this apple, we got this banana right here, and oh yeah, I'll have it, and it's great. But we're doing pretty well as far as the girls. They're handling it. We're able to, on the nice days, go outside, do sidewalk chalk, that kind of stuff. They don't understand it's been 3 weeks since they'd seen anybody in person other than us, and so I think we're blessed in that sense. That it'll be something that hopefully they will never really remember and they won't have to deal with. Now, us as parents, I mean, as human beings, we're going to deal with it, but at least our girls, they will be a little bit shielded from what's going on.
So what effects has it had on Max? Does Max go to a traditional daycare where he has to stay home? I know it doesn't affect him per se, but are you guys trying to work while he's at home and you're figuring it out, or what are you doing with Max while this is all going on?
It hasn't changed too much for us. I work from home normally, and usually my mom will come over some days to help watch while I'm working. So the only difference now is my wife is also kind of working from home more often, not 100%. So my mom she's only come over once since this happened. So, we're kind of limiting that a little bit, but it hasn't changed too much for him yet. Although I did get a great picture of him a couple days ago, looking out the window, like this kind of let me out moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he's way too young to know. We're inside all the time anyway, so It's still cold here where we're at. So
he doesn't even, he hasn't been through a summer, so he doesn't know. My older daughter, she wants to go outside. She wants to go to the lake. She wants to do all these things that she's done for a couple of years. And, it's, luckily when they're younger, they have no idea. They don't have any clue.
Right.
So who's it been harder on, you to have your wife working in your house while you're working, or your wife to have to work from home?
Don't answer that.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
It's a trick.
Blink twice.
He's trying to get you back for the shoe thing.
Yeah.
No, I'm just curious.
No, it's for me, since I normally work from home, I have my own office, so I just kind of am able to, be in my office, and what happens anywhere else in the house.
That's on her. That's good.
So I'll jump in with some of this. First of all, Bobo, thank you for doing this where I could see you as you sit here and brag about the fact that your kids are okay with apples and bananas. Like, that's just fine. If my son, like I'm talking to you guys right now, but all I'm hearing is my son Isaac yelling for cheddar bunnies. That's the organic version of the goldfish crackers.
Oh, okay.
Just little cheddar bunnies. No, they don't know what they're missing from a being around people standpoint. My wife has always done a good job when it comes to like FaceTiming family and stuff like that. So they're able to kind of get by with that. Them not being in school is a level of structure that we're definitely noticing that they're missing that from a behavioral standpoint. That structure really helped, to be honest with you, when it comes to them having their routine. So breaking that routine and trying to develop new ones has been kind of a struggle. We've been making it a point to try to get outside more. So whether it be my wife taking them in the backyard, or us finding relatively secluded areas to like maybe go for a hike where you're not around people, but you're at least able to be outdoors and stuff like that. We've done that a couple times, which has been nice. But I think we're noticing it way more than they are. They're certainly not asking about it. Like, they'll ask to go outside, and the backyard will suffice. We've got a big enough backyard for them to where they'll be okay with that. It's really them not having the routine, because we had, between schools and therapies, there were a lot of different things that we've had them doing throughout the course of a day. When you remove all of that stuff, it's just you and them, which on paper isn't bad. I like hanging out with them and stuff like that. But A, it's hard to be productive from a work standpoint. And B, they're clingy when they don't have a routine, man. Like, there's a lot. It's just a lot. But they don't know what they're missing yet, which is cool. So I think that the point, I forget who made it before, about them not being old enough to really have like those friends or like social factors really playing a role. The fact that that's not a thing yet, I'm kind of in a sweet spot age-wise for that.
Yeah, both of my girls comprehend it, but like to different levels, and they both hate it for different reasons.
No joke, real quick, Dan. Like, what is North Dakota's stance right now? Like, I know Michigan, Ohio, we're shelter. I mean, we're locked down, not locked down, but we're shelter in place, stay at home, all that kind of stuff.
Most places are working from home. There haven't been many cases. Our county just kind of got hit, and I don't even want to say hard, but we went from like 0 to maybe 10 in our county. So it's not too bad. It's nothing like what's happening in other parts of the world.
Like Detroit.
Not even
real
close.
bad.
So like I can still go out and like see other cars around. So that's
cars are out. People are not taking this thing serious, I feel like. But that's a whole nother side.
Yeah.
But we had to go today because Sarah had a baby doctor appointment, so we drove and I dropped her off.
Your doctor's a baby?
Yeah.
He's a man. He's a grown man. He has a beard.
Well, you said he's the baby. All right.
Hey, this is Jay's show. We're just guests.
Sorry.
So, yeah, God. But no, so like Nora hates it because like she actually said the word coronavirus today, which was weird. But she understands like people have germs and you don't want to get sick. She hates it because some of our neighbors will let their kids go outside and play, or they'll go out and ride their bikes, and she doesn't like. She gets why she can't ride bikes, but she doesn't like it. Like she doesn't like that she can't go out there. And then Kimberly wanted her friend to come over, or actually she wanted to go to her friend's house. Her friend's mom works at the hospital, and we're like, no, you're not going.
Yeah.
No, you're not going. And we said, well, your friend can come over here. And she was like, got a glimmer of hope. And then I was like, but we're putting Germ-X on her hands the second she walks through the door and Lysoling all of her clothes.
Yeah.
She was like, ha ha ha, and got ready to text. I'm like, no, I'm serious. That's what we're doing.
Yes.
She looked at her mom and then was like, yeah.
Yeah, we
And she
got
was
to
like,
protect
"Never mind.
ourselves.
I'll just stay here." Sorry if you're embarrassed, but that's going to happen. So,
Yeah, so I can't imagine, especially you said 13. Is that how?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't. I could only think of myself being that age, and just the fact that I would have to be going absolutely stir crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. We've played a lot of Monopoly on the Xbox to keep her entertained. Nora's been learning video games as well. Played Bro Smash, aka Smash Brothers, on the Wii.
I like what she calls it better.
Yeah, Bro Smash. It's not such a better name. And then like try to keep it educational as well. So one thing that she's been watching has been Alpha Blocks, which has been pretty cool. So not to give away anything to the listeners, but we have a script we're going off of, and I jumped ahead. So Alpha Blocks was some programming that I recently found out about and enjoyed.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to bring up was,
Is it?
As we're all
Seamless transition.
read my mind. As we're all like sheltering in place here, I haven't had to watch too much kid programming with Max yet because he's still pretty young. But like, what are some things that are good? What are some things to avoid? Because I'm going into this thing blind.
So I want to say, if I can go first, my oldest daughter was about Max's age when we started putting things on. So your mileage may vary, but you're probably not too far away.
Yeah.
The attention span is going to be really short. So there's some shows on Netflix. One called Little Baby Bum, which is just nursery rhymes, which I'm not. I mean, I ended up hating it, but she really liked it.
The music isn't bad. It's the creepy.
It is. But I just considering Max's 1+, you're getting to be about that age where this segment will be valuable. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we've actually we've put on that Little Baby Bum before, and I hate that one. But he does like the music, but anytime my wife puts that on, I'm like, all right, I'm
out of here.
Well, there's Baby First, right? Is it a channel? I think.
I've heard of that one.
Yeah, that one. There's a lot of there's Harry the Bunny. There's I'm trying to think. We haven't watched it in a while now because our girls are a little bit older, and once you have the first kid dominates all of the programming and everything, whereas like with the first kid, in your case with Max, like you're able to expose him to the things you want, and he's not able to really make his decisions yet. But with the second kid's going to do whatever the first kid wants. So yeah, Eliana grew out of Little Baby Bum, and she grew out of Baby First very quickly, where Maddie we would have liked her to watch a little bit more of that. But yeah, Baby First, there's a lot of good shows on that. It's very educational. It's a lot about the, matching or sharing or just simple songs, brushing your teeth, washing your hands, which are good things for kids at that age to learn because they're going to learn by song, by sight, and Color Crew. That's one of them with the different colors, and they learn what's right and what's wrong. So that's one at that stage that I feel like are big. Now, Dan, I think him and I are big on, there's Little Einsteins and then Storybots, which is Netflix only.
Yes.
Storybots is awesome.
Yes.
I sometimes feel that's a little too advanced for even like a 2 or 3 year old, but it's great. Like they always bring celebrities in. I think there's 3 seasons now. They talk about each episode's a different, where do French fries come from? And it's a whole thing about how French fries. There's one about why do you have to brush your teeth? And they're great shows like Storybots on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. They have goofy ass songs.
How does a computer work?
With Snoop Dogg?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
I want to watch that.
It's cartoon and like humans and stuff, so it's really cool. That's one. They got to be a little bit older for that one, but probably in Max's age, I would say Baby First and the little baby bum. That's a big one on your phone or on YouTube and stuff like that. But Baby First and that kind of stuff. Like you can find some good shows that'll teach them and not melt their brain. I feel like. Right.
I'm a little bit worried because sometimes I'll put on, especially when I have one video that I did that's just all Max playing, and anytime I throw that on the TV, he like stops whatever he's doing, and he is just like in a trance watching himself.
Well,
they get addicted really fast to screens.
He's a stud though, man. That's what he's looking at. He knows what to watch.
Studying game tape.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Oh yeah, it's done that with a shoebox.
I've looked at myself in this camera the whole time we've been recording. I don't know about you guys.
It
doesn't go away.
My kid's favorite thing to watch to this day, and they will just crack up. It's them watching an old Snapchat video of them like throwing clothes on the ground. So there's a basket of clothes on a couch, and they literally take it and they throw it all on the ground one by one. It's still it's going on 2.5 years now of being the funniest thing in existence. So we didn't really get cute. We let off with Sesame Street. So their childhood screen time experience was brought to you by Game of Thrones because HBO has all of the rights to Sesame Street.
Right.
So because of that, you kind of got their archive. So I kind of went with what I felt comfortable with, what my wheelhouse was. But because of that, you become very well versed with Sesame Street and you develop much stronger opinions for their characters than you would like to admit as parents. So I want you to watch it with caution. Don't just rely on Sesame Street because you're going to develop really strong feelings for those characters. Like Telly, I don't want to talk about how much I dislike Telly and why I dislike Telly, but it's a known thing amongst those on this pod. So that's one thing I want to caution you on when it comes to shows, any of these shows, to where if you watch it enough, you're going to develop very strong opinions and it's going to just affect your everyday life.
And, I actually like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse a lot, and I don't necessarily hate Paw Patrol. So you'll get used to these, and you're like, hey, if I'm stuck with them, I might as well just like them.
Real quick, let me go back to the Sesame Street. I'm going to break some glass. Big Bird can only move one arm. Watch an episode. He only moves one arm.
Bobo's got this weird anti-Big Bird agenda thing. He's got a thing about
weird.
Certain size.
He's weird.
It's a problem. We've tried talking to him about it. It's not 1 foot being bare out in public problem, but it's a problem. We're trying to address it as a group.
Bobo is birdist.
He is.
No, big birdist.
So Jay, I got a question for you. So in terms of what you're thinking going in, are you going to look for new things? Or are you going to go to like old classics that maybe you feel comfortable with? So how much of your own tastes are you going to kind of instill with what you first try out?
I at least want to start with things that aren't going to annoy the hell out of me.
Good luck.
That's a very important part.
So
that's a noble goal.
Yeah. So that's why I'm already turned away from the little baby bum. And I've been like one night, Max was struggling sleeping. He's usually a really good sleeper. So like I just got up with him and I put on a cartoon that I used to watch when I was a kid, the real Ghostbusters. And just me and Max sat in the sofa, just watching the real Ghostbusters until we both fell asleep. So I'm gonna probably, and I know that's advanced for his age, but I might try to look for cartoons or things that maybe I know, at least until he's old enough to be able to watch the ones that are going to annoy me.
But you know what the bad news is, though, and I think everyone else will agree, you don't have a choice sometimes If they want something, you're gonna give it to them.
Yeah.
Chris is bearing the lead. You don't have a choice any of the time, Jay.
No.
You're going to get to a point to where you're really just the person who clicks the button for them until they figure that part out, and then you're just the person who pays for it.
And then you're fired.
Yes.
So you got about
we're-
4 months.
Yeah.
We're in that Eliana. She can pick up the TV remote. She knows to get to Disney Plus, and she goes to Frozen, and
It's crazy.
it doesn't stop. Just like, yeah. Okay, Chris, how's that digital copy of Frozen 2 on your hard drive?
Hey, I'm just proud we didn't buy Onward.
Oh, yeah, because it's free now.
Technically, we're not out of the woods yet. So yeah, my 3-year-old
Went to Amazon Prime and bought Frozen 2 in 4K ultra high def. So they're pretty. They get savvy fast.
Fancy tastes.
Not out of the woods yet, huh? I caught you. All right.
Yeah, then they released it free on the Disney Plus like last month.
Yeah, they did. But hey, storybots. That's a good lead. I'm right. I wrote it down.
Yeah, check it out. You'll like it.
One thing that I'll say as well is that you guys are talking about how it's concerning the purchasing something or grabbing a remote and pressing something. There's nothing more alarming than watching your son, who, you know, you're still working on like tracing and stuff like that with, to where if you're watching a video on your phone, if you're watching a YouTube video, like you're doing Baby Shark or something, and a text message comes in and he knows to instinctively just swipe up real quick.
Yep.
Just right rid of it.
It's actually shameful. It's not even like alarming. You're like, man, how do we teach that? You just feel embarrassed for yourself.
The thing is that we didn't teach it. He just figured it out.
Right. From watching you guys do it.
Exactly. And Jay, I don't know if you heard this part.
No, had a little internet hiccup there. Sorry about that.
So if and when
We took it over, so we're good.
Appreciate it.
if and when you get to the part of like showing a video just on your phone, like you're in a doctor's office, you got to appease them when you're in a lobby and stuff. What you'll notice, and it's going to be a really weird coming of age moment that's going to be kind of unsettling, is when you're watching that video on YouTube or on Disney Plus or something, and then you get a message that comes in and they just instinctually swipe up like you would if you were watching something. Yeah, that is a humbling experience to like.
Or they know how to swipe to turn it on too, because they learn that pretty quickly.
They can't wipe their ass, but they can swipe away your message.
Exactly.
Sorry. So, yeah, I mean, I've noticed that with Max already. He'll, because we'll have a phone and he's interested in it because we're looking at it. And yeah, he'll come up, and I've given him like an old phone and that's not turned on, and he has no interest in it because things don't move when he touches them.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Max can work a smartphone better than my father can, and I have no question about that whatsoever.
Hey, your father's listening, Shane, so you better be careful.
And that's fine. When he responds, he'll be typing like this, so that's okay.
Shout out to the Soupies. No, my 2-year-old had a plastic fake phone today, and she FaceTimed Grandpa. I walked in the other room, and she was FaceTiming Grandpa. It was hilarious. Like, Grandpa, come over, see me. Okay. I'm like, it was really cute, but I'm like, it kind of, I guess, goes to the situation we're in right now because we're FaceTiming every night.
So smartphones are a good way to teach numbers too. So Nora had the number to unlock my phone. Hit 1414, and you can get.
She knows. She knows what it. She knows her ones and fours.
Keep switching it up, and then all right.
She'll learn.
It's called an incentive.
Now everybody knows.
Time to change it.
So Jay, really long answer to a simple question is what I would say is this: take control over this for as long as you can. So the thing you should watch is what Jay wants to watch, because pretty soon it's not going to be your choice anymore.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Hold that power, because I think you deserve it, frankly.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. All right. I want to start to kind of wrap up a little bit, but one of the things that you guys used to always start your podcast with, and you've kind of switched up a little bit here and there, but and hopefully you don't mind. Hopefully I can steal this and you'll be okay.
Let's do it.
Please do it.
Is hot takes. So you would start off with just some type of a rant or whatever, or just a hot take on anything. And I have this hot take that I've been holding on to for so long.
Let's hear it.
That I've just been dying to get out. So okay, my hot take: McDonald's. They have the 2 drive-through line, right? The double drive-through.
Yep.
So we live in a society. We live in a civilization So when you're in a line that splits at some point, you are in the line. At one point, it's one line, and then you go up and you go up further. And then when you get to the point to where it splits, that's when you split. You don't drive around 3 cars that are in one line.
Yeah.
Right.
To get into the part where it splits. So my hot take is for all those people that drive around 2 or 3 cars in the McDonald's double drive-through line, I'm generally a very calm, easygoing person, but I literally want to turn into Dexter and murder you when you do that.
You are justified in that too.
Yes. So if you're one of those people, just know I am judging you, and you are on my Dexter kill list.
I think that hot take is perfect for what our podcast is about too. That is well worth complaining about. Mm-hmm.
So Jay, I'm going to tell you. So I've actually thought about this before. So I'm really glad that someone else put it out in the universe. So you know who that person is to me? They're the same person who they're on the freeway and they're coming up to that. There's a sign that says left lane's going to end in a quarter mile. Mm-hmm. And they keep coming up, and there's already a traffic jam because it's like this. And they go zooming up, and they try to come over. So I've turned into the guy to where I'm all about justice. So I'm not going to kill him. I'm not going to Dexter. But what I am going to do is I'm going to put my car over enough to where I'm going to signal the person behind me, let them know I'm doing it, and I will put my car over enough to where they can't do it anymore.
Nice.
More people are doing this now. I suggest you doing it in McDonald's lines as well. You'll be doing those behind you a service.
Right on.
Shane's been thriving on petty revenge lately.
Yes, don't. Basically, it's I'm here about the little injustices, whether it be in a freeway, in the line of McDonald's, on an airplane. I will stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves.
Love it.
That was a good hot take.
I love it.
Any other hot takes out there?
None that could top yours, man.
Yeah,
that was great. That was awesome.
All right. So to kind of wrap things up, just final thoughts. We haven't talked about it in a while. What do you guys like this Evan Williams bottled and bond, or for Dan your Buffalo Trace?
I do. I love it, actually. I never a big bourbon guy, but as you guys talked about what to look for, what to taste, how you took it in, yeah, I'm a fan.
All right.
Dan's a fan of taking it in. I would say I did add some ice the second go around, and it's much better.
Where's
straight.
my cricket button?
Yep.
It's much better straight. It really is.
Oh, Bobo likes it straight.
Damn it.
So
I'm definitely gonna finish this bottle. Not today, but I'm really enjoying it.
So I'm going to rely on you for some more advice and some other things that you might recommend because this has been a good change of pace for me.
Awesome.
So I enjoyed it because kind of how we mentioned how drinking overall changes once you have kids and stuff like that. I also feel like what I look for out of my drinks have changed. So even just like the act of like learning, like you mentioned how you kind of got into bourbon. It's kind of how I've gotten into some of the drinks that I've had now. And I don't know, just the idea of learning something new is kind of fun. And the idea of taking your time and just kind of savoring things, taking advantage of the little time that you have is pretty fun. So no, I very much enjoy this. I'm looking forward to my next glass. So
and it always tastes better when you're drinking in good company too.
It is.
Hey, Nastrovia.
Yeah.
And it's 100 proof, so you don't have to drink a lot.
Warms you up. Any final tips, advice for me or for any new dad in general, just from your wisdom?
So I've got one thing. I want to say thank you, not just for having us and stuff like that, but one thing that I've noticed since we've tried to go into this realm a little bit is that I feel like we're targeting an audience that isn't necessarily looking for us because they don't know that we're here. Right. Like I feel like when I first went through the process of becoming a dad, I didn't look for stuff like this because I didn't know that it existed, right? So we're out here now, which is great. I really like what you're doing because you're attacking it from multiple angles. You're bringing a lot of great content when it comes to things like bourbon, and people are going to also take in all of this great dadding content as well. So because you've got this other expertise, you're also shining a light on something that otherwise wouldn't have a light shown on it. I think it's a message that kind of needs to get out there. This is the most active generation of dads that has ever existed. So the fact that you're having these conversations, the fact that we're trying to have these conversations kind of disarm people and make it a little bit more common, it's a good thing. So the fact that you're bringing things like bourbon into it and you're bringing other things that bring people together so that we can have conversations like this, we dig it just because your content's good, but we also think that this little community that we're building with these dad podcasts and stuff like that, you're providing a service that we're also trying to provide. So great job. Thank you for having us. And no, I think the way you're doing it is very cool.
Well, now I'm blushing a little bit, but
yeah, I was going for it. But it's I was going to blame it on the bourbon, but you can blame it on the words if you want.
I think all of us kind of had a moment the last couple of days. We were struggling, with coronavirus. It's kind of got us all on a weird mind frame. Then you sent this, outline over, and it's like, man, someone we don't know that we met through this podcast really digs what we've got going on, and it kind of gave me a little shot in the arm saying, hey, we're doing something good, and so is Jay, and it's really good to help each other's thrive in the community. So thank you. The outline was incredibly flattering, and this is a lot of fun, I think, for the four of us. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's nice to know that you're not just talking out into the void, right? That there are actually people out there listening and enjoying what you're doing. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, and Bobo said I was drunk about 30 minutes ago, and that might be a partial truth, but the truth does come out, and I think all of us have had a lot of fun here today.
Awesome,
for sure.
Hey, Chris, how many shoes you wearing?
0 shoes.
Okay, good. That's more acceptable than what you did the other day.
Get out of here.
All right, do you guys want to tell us where people can find your podcast, where people can find you on social media, all that fun stuff?
All right, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. 4 Dads, that's the number 4, Dads, DADS. 4 Dads, FOR.
That's not the word they're worried about. Dads.
Yeah. Sorry. So 4 Dads at all those places. Hit it, put it up in Google. We'll pop up. We'll be there. Like I said, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, follow us. We'll get you 4dadsfordads.com. We have some content hopefully coming out in the next couple weeks, some blog posts, some more than just our normal podcast. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be good.
We cannot be found at Ford Ads. Ford Ads.
I mean, depending on how you actually word it. So and Jay, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here.
Yeah.
In terms of a potential guest spot. We've got a seat warm for you. I want to have a setup nearly as cool as this eventually, but we'd love to have you on. We'll drink bourbon or whatever the hell you like. But no, we appreciate you having us on, and we would love to have you on ours as well.
Yeah, I'd be honored to. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
All right, Dan, Chris, Bobo, Shane. Thanks,
Cheers, guys.
Really appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers.
That's what I mean.
Sláinte, boys.